This week's Tides of War was called Full Throttle. And yes, if you thought it was based around vehicles, you thought kinda correctly, as well as some lovely bazookas. This week's playlist focuses on large scale maps with plenty of vehicles, and that means plenty of targets for me and my trusty bazooka. There are 7 maps within the playlist, and these are Pacific Storm, Iwo Jima, Wake Island, Solomon Islands, Twisted Steel, Panzerstorm, and Al Sundan. Now for me, I don't really enjoy the Conquest game mode a lot. I know, how dare I! Conquest is a staple of the Battlefield series, and I would say, yes it is, you are correct. However, that does not mean I have to enjoy seeing a vehicle around every corner or turn. Sorry, I mean that does not mean I have to enjoy that particular game mode over other game modes. But this week, I played primarily in the Breakthrough game mode, and I would say that both Conquest and Breakthrough have enough opportunity for you to complete your Tides of War tasks. In fact, all the game modes besides Team Deathmatch and Domination, as I believe they're the only ones that remove vehicles. Oh, other than Grind, but I think that is a special Tides of War only game mode, as I don't think you can create a community games match with that preset. Something I want to mention just before I go into what the tasks were for this week's Tides of War. On Monday, DICE brought back the South African servers back online, and that I've definitely seen a slight improvement in the games that I was getting into this week. It was really demotivating to see half the server with 100 plus ping, but since Monday that has not happened to me as much, so thank you very much DICE, and please keep these up for as long as possible so that more of the community can enjoy the better experiences. They did state that we will get a much sooner notice for when those servers go back on offline, unlike last time, which is always a positive, so people can prepare and be aware of what is happening in the game. This week's Tides of War tasks started off with Land Grab, which is capture 3 objectives and you are rewarded with 5000 chapter XP. And then this first task splits off into 3 different paths. The first top path task is Cruising. Earn 2000 score using vehicles or stationary weapons. And then the first task on the bottom path is Tortured Metal. Repair teammate vehicles or damage enemy vehicles for 300 health. And this rewards you with 14,000 XP, along with Cruising rewarding you with 14,000 XP. The first middle path node is Music to My Ears. Kill enemies or disable enemy vehicles 10 times using the M1A1 bazooka, and this again gives you 14k chapter XP. Then the second node on the top path is Armored Corps. As a squad, kill 50 enemies using vehicles or stationary weapons, and this will reward you with 14,000 chapter XP. The second task on the bottom path is Light Them Up. Fully suppress or spot 20 enemies, and once again this gives you 14k chapter XP. The second node in the middle path is Valiant Sacrifice. Disable or destroy 1 enemy vehicle using the lunge mine, and once again this gives you 14k chapter XP. And then all 3 paths converge into one final task, which is Zero Sum Game. Revive teammates or kill enemies 40 times, and you'll get that sweet whopping 30,000 chapter XP to help bump you through those chapter rewards, as well as helping get in that lovely golden chapter dog tag. And as well, you will get your tier unlock for if you have not managed to get Masakai. I'm not sure how you actually meant to pronounce her name, but if you have not got her yet, these tier rewards are one of the easiest and best ways to get hold of her. Oh, that was the wrong thing. Now for some opinions of mine that you may not agree with, but I'm going to share them with you anyways. For me, the vehicles are still too overpowered, and yes, I know a tank is supposed to one-shot an infantry in real life and whatnot, but this game is definitely not a real life simulator. It's a game, and more importantly, it's an arcade game. It's not even like a tactical shooter. I don't want the damage of the tanks being nerfed. What I would prefer is a nerf to the defensive side of the tanks. Yes, they could do with actually some extra things on the defensive side of tanks, but for me that's more about team play and squad play, working together and not being a solo tank player. This could be less like max armor or HP that the tank is allowed, but that's probably just a really cheap and easy way to do it that won't go off well. Or you could just plain remove the self-repair function, as I believe that mechanic is too overpowered, or at least have it on an ammo count of some kind, like limited uses, not just a cooldown. In my opinion, I think it should have limited uses. Come on, who else has, like, you know, slammed multiple rockets into a tank to then have to run off to get more ammo, to then find that that very same tank has just self-repaired all that damage, and they haven't even had to get out of the vehicle to do any of that repairing or anything, so they've taken no risk. Another change I would like to see is to another vehicle. The planes do not need the spotting flares, in my honest opinion. They cover way too much area and are pretty hard to see, never mind shoot out the sky, and can be spammed a lot easier than the recon spotting flare, in my opinion. And with the spotting bug still being in the game, it's pretty annoying to not know if it's the bug or a spotting flare from a plane that you can barely even see. Another thing I would like, since this is not a real life simulator, would be a small indicator telling me how I was spotted. Was I spotted through a spotting scope? Did someone fully suppress me and get me spotted that way? Or is it a flare floating gracefully in the sky? Too many times I've looked into the sky to try to see the flare that is spotting me to find out it's no flare, and then being bewildered, someone pushes me and kills me, when I could have been knowing that it's not a flare in the sky and kept an eye on my corners and my flanks. I don't want it to be like, hey, this guy is the one who spotted you, like right over here, and spot him out for me or anything like that, but a simple little icon to tell me if it was a scope or a flare or suppression. I think that could really help out a lot of the newer players and the older players of the games. Going back to the topics of planes though, I would love for DICE to re-enable the pilots of aircrafts to be shot with regular guns. Like, using the sniper rifle to kill pilots or gunners of an aircraft was really fun and satisfying, as well as it did help keep the balance, in my opinion. From my perspective, the only things aircraft players have to really worry about nowadays are the AA tanks and stationary guns or the other planes. And with them being able to self-repair as well, a single good pilot could technically go a whole round without taking a death. However, a good anti-aircraft player could technically never kill an aircraft, as they cannot one-shot the aircraft out of the air, as far as I know, but the tanks and stationary anti-air placements can themselves be one-shot by the very thing they're meant to counter. Now for the launchers. Oh, these things are super unreliable for me, and half the time you're just going to expose your location to the tank and get obliterated by it. But it doesn't stop me playing Assault for 90% of my playtime because no one else plays it and the tanks can just run completely rampant on some maps. From my experience, the glancing blows, normal hits and critical hits are all dependent on the vehicle you are shooting at. Also, with the plethora of vehicle choice, it can be really hard to quickly distinguish which tank you are aiming at, and then try to remember the faction's weak spots. Yes, you may say just aim for the engine, but again, the engine is not in the same place through all vehicles, thus forces you to try to remember a bunch of other things, as well as judge the distance and then the angle of impact so it doesn't get classed as a glancing blow. With the attrition mechanic on top of this, it means that the only launcher worth taking, in my opinion, into the battlefield would be the bazooka, as it gets 5 shots, and I believe it's got the lowest arc and furthest distance, meaning it's the most accurate. It does have less damage than I think the Piat, but for long range engagements especially, which is quite often how you would try to engage a tank sometimes. So you do not want to just jump out in front of it. If you do that, you're probably wanting C4, not the launchers. The launchers are for ranged combat against a tank. I don't think reducing the tank's armor would be the way to go, but rather removing the glancing blows and critical blows entirely and just have them always deal the same damage again. I would say keep this systematic damage on the tanks, but possibly tweak all the tanks' stats individually to make sure that the balance remains, so that obviously if the launchers are, like, certain launchers are going to deal more damage, then the tank itself, if it gets, obviously it's track disabled, it may want like an extra 10-20 HP to obviously offset the balance. Maybe not enough to, you know, completely stop another rocket, but enough for it to possibly take another glancing blow or something from an aircraft and not get completely blown up. Like, I would rather have a random chance to deal the systematic damage to the tank's different components, but always know I dealt the same amount of health to the tank. I can accept all the launchers have different damage values to the different classes of vehicles, having different velocities, having the unique arc patterns and different max ammo capacities, if the damage from them didn't feel so random due to the critical glancing mechanics. One last thing about the launchers that really grinds my gears is the inability to shoot straight away after fully pulling up the sights. I understand that this was an issue in the older versions of Battlefield where 2 to 3 rockets would just kill any tank regardless, or there'd be so many different things that can damage the tank that literally every player, every infantry can engage a tank and deal damage to it, but this is not the case anymore. I will gladly trade off in a slower ADS speed if I'm not blocked out from firing the weapon when I want to. I can fire my gun in the middle of ADSing, but it's not going to let me to do it with my rocket launcher. Too many times I've spotted a tank, got my rocket launcher out, lined up my shot, and then the launcher just won't fire because I've done it too quickly. The outcome usually ends up being the tank just looks at me and one-shots me like a fly, or they just start moving. And we all know how hard it is to not hit the glancing blow on a moving tank in Battlefield 5. Please remember that all of these were my personal own opinion, and that they are just that, my opinions and thoughts. Well, that is all for this week's Tides of War Full Throttle. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and let me know your thoughts and opinions on these matters in the comment box down below. I would love to see what the rest of the community have to think about the vehicle and infantry balance. As always, drop me a thumbs up or down and let me know if you enjoyed the video or not. Hit that red subscribe button if you want to see more of my content. And finally, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you later.